9 podcasts.
Welcome everyone to The Trade-Off, your daily podcast giving you all the latest news, updates, you name it, from this year's AFL trade period. And thanks to Tyre Power. For Tyre Power's great race sale, buy 3 and get 1 free on selected Kumho passenger cars and SUV tyres. I'm Jimmy Bartel and this is the Essendon legend Matthew Lloyd. Afternoon, Lloydie.
Afternoon, Jimmy. It's often a Mexican standoff, isn't it, for the next 3 or 4 days? So it's exciting when a deal gets done, as there's not too many in the next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, as we said yesterday, just take a grain of salt what those football bosses say. I think Gubby Allen probably won yesterday's microphone challenge between all the football managers saying, hey, we've got more cash to spend, more cash here. So he still wants to go fishing, Gubby, which we'll see whether he will go looking for another player in particular. Let's start there with the Saints because we've got a bit to get through. Sam Flanders we spoke about as being another name on their whiteboard. He said he'd love to go to the Saints. He got himself a big chubby deal there. Pick 7 looks to be heading to the Gold Coast Suns for Sam Flanders, so they get another man by the looks of it, the Saints.
I want to ask you, Jimmy, do you see him being an All-Australian multiple? Can you see him being a one? How do you see Sam Flanders as a player?
It's a great question, Lloydie. I think in a very good side, if he's playing in the right position, I think he'll attract that sort of attention. He did win a lot of the football when he was a full-time midfielder up there at the Gold Coast Suns a couple of years ago before Damien Hardwick got in. Of course, Dimmer saw something different. And look, when you've got Anderson, Rao, Miller coming through the midfield, then Fiorini actually started to win a fair bit of ball. And now we know Fiorini's out. They got a lot of academy kids. But to your question, he's a guy that has capability to be a 20-plus possession and a goal-a-game player. And I think that's the element he needs to add to his game is hit the scoreboard a bit more than just be accumulator. And I think if he does that, then he's potentially an All-Australian. So another good pickup for the Saints. And while we're talking about the Saints, I think you got caught off guard a little bit this morning. Everyone thinking, well, if Gubby Allen's true to his word and they're going to go fishing again, I think some people are trying to put the De Koning brothers together. Of course, Sam De Koning down there at Geelong. That'd be pretty difficult to get that one over the line, the Saints.
It'd be unbelievable if they could do that as well. So I think he hasn't probably come on, Sam, as well as you'd hope this year at Geelong after what he did probably a couple of years ago and a premiership player that he is. But yeah, that came out of nowhere. I was asked on radio about it. I'm not sure. Do you know who started that one?
No, I think it's just people trying to make 1 and 1 to equal 2 out of that one. Hey, while we're talking about the Gold Coast Suns, Sydney has landed Gold Coast small forward Malcolm Rosas Jr. in exchange, and there's some back-end picks there, 51 and 69. And the Swans also getting in return pick 62. So some late-end picks changing hands. But essentially, the Swans get a pretty dynamic small forward who found himself on the outer. So another good little ad from the Swans. It's not a big needle shifter, but it just allows them to do a lot of different things on their forward line.
Yeah, he gets an opportunity. He was just behind too many at the Gold Coast Suns. Like Ainsworth, he's another one that's probably asking himself, how can I move on? And Carlton, it was reported showing some interest in him. So Sydney, you got guys like Hayward, you got guys like Tommy Papley, so it's not going to be easy for him there either. But they obviously shown that they like him and will give him an opportunity.
I think those guys will like him because he'll run around and do all the tackling and stuff while they get to hit the scoreboard. I want to ask you, too, about the Gold Coast Suns. There's been some report Jake Rogers, who was actually one of their Gold Coast Academy picks, which everyone lost their mind about because they got in Jed Walter, Ethan Reid, and he was one as well, Rogers. Only 2 years in, he's only played 19 games with Christian Petracca trying to get there as well. Then now all of a sudden got all this depth and young talent who are going, hang on, am I actually going to get played? So that'd be tough for the Gold Coast Suns to have one of their own academy picks after 2 years going, you know what, I want out. But on the flip side, that's a big tick for the academy system, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really smart too from clubs, like eyeing off guys who have that much potential, but early would be frustrated they're not getting games. I saw a report there that the Adelaide Crows looking at Riley Sanders would say make a call to his management going, he's been dropped a few times here. He doesn't get the midfield time. Would give him that. We would love to have him in our midfield. So I think that's what good clubs do. They get in early and sort of like I did a lunch the other day with Josh Kendi of the Sydney Swans, and he spoke about the call coming from the Swans, and he went to Clarkson, and Clarkson said, well, you're behind Sewell, you're behind Hodge, you're behind Lewis. maybe take that opportunity on. And I know it's a different level to these guys, but that's how you attract these good young players.
Turned into some sort of player, Kennedy, by the way. And Carlton today, it became official. Liam Reedy joins the Blues, of course, getting some ruck stock in there without Tom de Koning. He'll get an opportunity to play, of course. He's an incredibly tall ruck. I know that sounds silly for a ruck, but you got some guys who've got some serious reach in the competition. Then you got your more bulking types, which, like your Kieran Briggs or the old Shane Mumfords of the world, but Reedy is very much a long reach type of ruckman. So the Blues get their man across. There's some exchange of some later picks in that, which they keep bundling up each year and get shifted around. The one I want to ask you next, Lloydie, it's just semantics, really. Still no official trade request from Zach Merritt per Matt Rosa at Essendon. Isn't the trade request already there? Is that just talking to the microphone, or do they actually officially need Zach to dial it in and get the hotline and say, excuse me, Matt, I'd like to leave?
I think it's just strategy from Zach and his management where they go, okay, there's no point putting ourselves out there just yet. But I'd expect that by this time say by Monday of next week, it'll be reported that Zach has demanded that he moves on to a new club. But there's just no point doing that and upsetting the Bombers fans even more so at this point of the trade period.
Yeah, that middle weekend does some strange and wonderful things, and we tend to get some results come Monday morning. All right, this is probably the biggest news across the course of day's play. Per Cal Toomey, Collingwood have fielded multiple calls regarding Nick Dacos and if there was any potential for a trade. Now, Cal Toomey doesn't make things up. How does a story like this come to the surface? And I'll give you my 2 cents worth to give you a chance to think of your answer, Lloydie. I think wherever it's come from, it seems like just putting out there to Collingwood from whatever Nick's side is, just don't take it for granted that I'm a father, son, and I'm here forever. Still make sure you pony up the right amount. You're not going to get me as a discount. You're going to pay full market odds. Is that fair to say that could be an approach?
Well, I know Nick spoke in an interview with Sam McClure one day around Tasmania and not ruling that at one point. So, he's probably wanting to making sure that they do pay him full value. But it was just as a result of the rumours that circled that Peter Dacos wasn't happy with the second in the Copeland Trophy for Nick, and that when Darcy Cameron won. So, if you get a sense, why not? Let's call him. Let's get him while potentially he's not happy or feels that he's not being valued enough. There's no way in the world they'd ever do a trade, but there's no harm in making the call and asking the question.
It's funny. We all sit there and there's no way that a Dacos couldn't play for Collingwood. But I remember in my time, you couldn't ever get your head around an Ablett not playing for Geelong, and he played for the Gold Coast Suns for quite some time. And I think the big thing which Cal Toomey touched on only last week when we got the full package, the full suite of the starter pack for the Tassie Devils there, those sign-on bonuses, they're a game changer. When it's outlaid to you that potentially someone like Nick Dacos in 1 year of football, that first year at Tassie, could get $5 million because they can spend up to $3 million in a year of the $5 million, plus pay him the $2 million. Like that's extraordinary amount of money.
Exactly, and that's what he'd be on. Like to see Wanganeen Millerer, would you get $2 million? Nick would be on 1.2.
Something like that. Yeah.
1. So he would be. There's no doubt he'd be thinking to himself, okay, I'm seeing some big money around it. I'm in the best 1 to 2 players in the game. So in the next few years, you'd think that he has to be getting up around that 2 himself, or could command what you said elsewhere if he wanted.
It's hard to get your head around him being in a different jumper apart from a Collingwood jumper. Lloydie, we spoke about yesterday in depth about Essendon and Hawthorn and the whole how many picks would Essendon actually need. Well, we hear Essendon are making a play at pick 1 and 2 to get up the draft order there because they've got a stack of really good picks themselves, Essendon. So can they cash a few of them in, get themselves up to pick 1 or 2 and pick the player they really, really want?
Yeah, so currently the Bombers have pick 4 and 5. They've reached out to West Coast and Richmond to say, okay, would you have a chat? West Coast have 1 currently, Richmond have pick 2, and they've got pick 3 as well. So can we move around a little bit? Everyone in that, they may have different players that they want. So those clubs, people might go, why would West Coast give up 1 and Richmond 2? Well, Bombers may say, well, we want this bloke, and they might go, well, we didn't want him anyway, so yeah, let's do the deal. And then Essendon may say, well, we're going to get Merritt's pick in as well down later in the week, which will be pick. I don't know what's that going to be.
So we'll say if they get pick 8.
Pick 8, yeah. So we're getting another pick coming in anyway. So can we get? I don't know if it is Dersma, but it might be who. Yeah. So that's what clubs are thinking about and why clubs would be willing to change picks if there's a different player that they personally want.
If you're Richmond, who have benefited from trading a future pick, remember they did the deal with the Kangaroos, which got them this nice pick that they've got in their hand at the moment. If they were to get one of four or five and Essendon's future first, you'd do that deal, wouldn't you? Because if you think next year's draft is stronger, and then you've got, again, your own pick and then Essendon's pick, and look, for Essendon fans, I hope you do play finals, but I think most people, where they're coming from now, wouldn't expect them to play finals. So you'd have 2 high picks already starting for next year.
Yeah, and I love what the Giants did a number of years ago when Aaron Cadman. So no other club wanted him at pick 1 probably.
Yep.
But the Giants said fits our need, and it's great. Like, there was a great selection. Cadman's going to be a star. He already is. So I admire the Bombers for doing that right now.
Yeah, so Essendon with a lot of options in front of them, and could have even more options depending on what happens with Zach Merritt and others. Collingwood, they'll continue to meet with Clayton Oliver. Of course, he met with the GWS Giants when he was just going on a holiday, mate, which he stopped past Sydney and got himself out on the harbour there. It's a beautiful place, Sydney Harbour, especially if you're in a nice boat and the sun's out and you've got some potential teammates wooing you. Collingwood, clearance where they could get a fair bit of help with Clayton Oliver, but they do have Tom Mitchell on their list. Well, they've told him maybe to explore his options elsewhere. Ned Long showed us plenty, I guess, this year. Oliver probably fits the Giants more than Collingwood or if he plays for Collingwood, he just plug in and he takes the centre bounce.
He'd just be wrapped if he's got those 2 options. You don't want to be left with one or none, and so to have a choice to fit Clayton Oliver to go, you know what, how good would it be for me to get out of Melbourne and play my footy in Sydney? Or he might go, how good would it be to play for Collingwood on the MCG in front of 80,000 people week in and week out to reinvigorate myself, and I can play with Nick Dacos and I can play with Pendlebury and I can, so pretty exciting either option. He's got, so in a perfect world for Clayton, he's got the 2 choices and he can decide on which one suits him.
Probably a perfect world for Melbourne to have some competitive tension as well. So to have the 2 teams duelling out, so they'd be wanting to get that number down of how much they're paying of Clayton Oliver's contract as much as possible. Players still up in the air, Lloydie. Let's start with Stephen May. We had him on the list yesterday, but we didn't get around to him. Stephen May is a fascinating one because I think most other years he'd probably be one of the most talked about players, but because we've got captains and key forwards and all sorts up in the air, Stephen May has sort of drifted out the back, if you will, as far as conversation goes. He's been told by Melbourne he's still here, but be expected to play in the VFL because we want to play others. So if he can get a home elsewhere. We haven't heard much of clubs circling Stephen May at the moment.
No, I think of clubs in the window, premiership window, like your Swans or your Doggies who have said no to him, your Geelong. I'd love to get him down at the local park tomorrow morning and just see what his agility is like. What's he like bending over? Because that was a bit of a problem for him late in the year, and that would scare a few clubs off. But if you can get so these players like Steve May, they're good first year up, and we've seen it, with players, whether it be a Jakey Stringer or a Stephen May, but blokes who want to prove something and show. And yes, he's getting on in age, but. I'd love to do a medical and a session with him just because I think he'd be pretty good if you can get him fit and firing.
The early talk when Stephen May's name came up, a lot of people, probably not Bulldogs people, but just people who watch enough of the game go, geez, the Dogs could use him because we know the Dogs have got attacking power, they've got midfield power. They were pretty gallant behind the ball, but weren't good enough against the good sides. Would he fit the Dogs, the Suns, Collingwood?
Collingwood, yeah. That's the one that jumps out at me, like Frampton and Charlie Dean. Those type of players, Steve May would have been better than those guys this year, I would have thought, at his best. And at his best is the question I keep asking. Yeah. Can he get back to that for one season to help a team like Brian Lake style to win a premiership?
You wonder with some of these players, they aren't part of a bigger deal because at the moment we're just looking one club trying to trade with another club, but a lot of the conversations we're hearing, even with Charlie Curnow, even Zach Merritt, there might be a need for a third or a fourth club to get involved.
Can I ask you before we finish on Melbourne, that Guerra and Stephen King have gone from saying, no, we expect to play finals to what's gone on with Petracca, Oliver, and now May. Do you think that he's gone in there and Maury's gone out, we need a culture shift?
Yeah, look, I get the point, and a lot of people go, well, how can you say, we expect to play finals? But I think when he had the microphone in front of him, Stephen King, I'm talking about, I felt like he was talking to the players. You know, we often hear coaches either are talking to the members, the fans, the media, or the players. And I felt like he was talking to the players like, hey, yes, we're going to move on some of our most star-studded experienced players who have taken us to the top of the mountain. But don't think that's a year where we're just going to regress. Like, I'm going to still have the ambition to push you to finals. I felt like that was the tone I took out of it. I know sometimes when coaches or presidents or people involved in football clubs go, it's finals or bust, and we hold them to it. I just felt like that was Stephen King going, no, I'm putting my foot down. I've been open and honest with these guys. I'm not saying that you can't come back to the club, but be prepared of you could be playing VFL. To the younger guys or the guys who be seeing this or played a lot of football with, don't think this is a year off. You better get ready because I'm still ambitious.
Yeah. Do you reckon he sold it in his job interview? He would have had to have said, hey, I'm going to move these guys on.
I think he sold short-term and long-term because, again, the comments from Paul Guerra, we had him actually on 3AW before a game. And when we asked who's the ideal coaching candidate, it was really pressed upon us that we're looking to appoint a coach for the next 8 to 10 years. Yeah. And so if you're going to appoint someone and say, hey, you've got 8 to 10 years, that's saying we'll give you a bit of time to build it. A bit like Sam Mitchell. A couple of years to build it up and then really launch. And Sam Mitchell's probably ahead of the curve. We reckon a lot of people at Hawthorn expected. They expect him to be good. But I reckon this is where Paul Guerra is going with Stephen King in Melbourne. It's like, okay, get it all right. Get all the people you want. And we want you to be successful for a long time.
Yeah, just the final one on that. The challenge for King will be, will anyone want to go to Melbourne? So my check's gone, but he's at the end of his career getting 2 years instead of 1. But would a Bailey Humphrey say, I want to go to Melbourne? Like, if some people are asking, what would Cozzy Pickett be thinking right now? Saying, what am I gone in his last year or two? Pickett, who's in the prime of his career. So they'd want to have a solid year. Otherwise, I think Cozzy Pickett might be raising that hand again in a year's time saying, geez, I want to get out here.
Yeah, no, it's a good point you make. Time for our tough calls. Thanks to Grunt. No matter what you do it with Grunt. There's nothing tougher, available exclusively at Bunnings. Heading into day 3 of the trade period, who needs to make a tough call? I'm going to take the new ball here today, Lloydie, and it's around Jamarra ugle-hagan. Now, look, Gold Coast seems to be the only one at the moment who's been willing to inquire, got him up there, had a good chat with the coach, and I wish him nothing but the best in his football return. I'm a person who hopes the best for people. I'd just be curious whether a conversation even Gold Coast or other clubs would be willing to have with Jamarra going, can you show us the level of commitment? So if you go play VFL football or SANFL or Waffle, whatever second-tier competition, and you dominate there, we've got a mid-season draft period, remember, that I think if that was to be the case and he did really well, I think he could have his pick of 6, 7 clubs instead of just going, well, do I just accept what Gold Coast has got in front of me or could I miss out? So what I'm saying is I think if he misses out at Gold Coast, but he's still so ambitious to play football, I think he could still set himself up really well. Like if he goes, I'm going to get as fit as I've ever gotten, I'm going to go embrace just saying VFL football, I'm going to kick 50, 60 goals. There'd be a lot of clubs lining up for him then.
Next year, he'd be on $800,000 with the Dogs, 1 year left of a contract. So what's the situation there if he plays for the Suns? Suns would be great if he went on a base salary of $100,000 at the Suns, and that would really show. But I want to know.
They'd put so many incentives in that contract. Yes. Like the more you play, the more matches.
So will the Dogs be paying some of his salary?
It's a good question. Yeah. It depends what they negotiate on the exit. They might just say, here, take this and go explore other options. I'm not sure what agreement they've come to.
Well, on your point, I think if the Suns pull out and don't take him, well, I think that's where he will be playing his footy next year. So I just think he's so fortunate and lucky that somebody like the Suns are willing to give him that opportunity.
Yeah, I just don't see, if he's so ambitious and he's so keen and excited to get back in footy, I think if the Suns don't take him, there's still great opportunities there for him if he wants it. Like, if he really wants to do it, and if it means he plays a year of VFL and plays well, I think then you'll have this time next year 6 or 7 clubs going, hey, you've shown us you're ready to dominate.
Yep. Jimmy, my tough call is on the Suns as well, and that is Tim Lamb was speaking tough. He speaks tough at his, obviously, the start of trade week, and he just said, we're not paying for any of the salary of Christian Petracca. And it just had me thinking that I would think that Bailey Humphrey could potentially win more games for the Suns next year than Christian Petracca, and that's I know it's a big call, but I just feel that Christian doesn't hurt you anymore by foot. So I think since his injury, he's gone from being a top 5 player in the game to, I don't know where he sits, but he may have been out of the top 50 this year with the way he went, even though he finished second in Melbourne's best and fairest, because he just doesn't do the damage. Whereas I see Humphrey with a big pre-season being a top, I don't know, could he be a top 20 player in the game if he got super fit by kicking 40 or 50 goals? So my tough call was that I'd never, ever let Christian Petracca get in the way of Humphrey. That they maybe say we can afford to have both on the list, and that would be unbelievable for the Gold Coast.
Just purely Moneyball. Humphrey costs you a lot less than Petracca.
Yeah, and that's where, I think that I'd be willing to send him back to Melbourne to get him on our term. I'd say, Christian, you're coming on our terms, more so than paying $1 million to have him on the books.
Well, the Gold Coast are looking to have soft tacos and hard tacos. Why not both? And let's see if they can pull it off. And also, they've got a number of players just exploring options elsewhere. So they are certainly going to be busy, the Gold Coast Suns, across the trade period. And that's why we have the trade off to bring you up to date on all the day's action in the trade period. Join us tomorrow for day 3. All thanks to Tyre Power. Tyre Power's great race sale. Buy 3 and get 1 free on selected Kumho passenger car and SUV tyres. As always, thanks, Lloydie.
Thanks, Jimmy.